everyone. Thank you for attending the 9th part of HULATAM webinar series. In these sessions, we plan to introduce Harrisburg University, its available resources, and the researches that are going on. My name is Rouzbeh Siddiqian. I am an associate professor of data analytics at Harrisburg University, and I have the honor to be the host of this series. Harrisburg University is a private STEM-focused university in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, with an additional location in Philadelphia. We have more than 30 undergraduate and graduate majors with over than 6,000 students that are representing 110 countries. And this Harrisburg University School is accredited and recognized by the U.S. Secretary of Education, and it has been #1 STEM university in US for 3 consecutive years. And we are so happy to announce that we are now moving to Panama location. HULATAM, the abbreviation that we use for Harrisburg University of Latin America, is now offering data analytics, project management, and cybersecurity, which will be delivered in a hybrid format, which means online and on-campus classes, and the courses are going to be taught by instructors from Harrisburg University, the location in US. As I mentioned, this is the 9th sessions of these talks. So if you have missed our past talks, feel free to watch them on the address that is shared with you. Or if you have more questions about HULATAM, please follow the link which is shared on the screen. If you have any questions during the talk, feel free to type it on the chat box, and I will monitor it and talk about it with the presenter. Without any further talk, let's start with our first presenter, Bruce Young. Bruce Young is an information security executive with 25 years of experience in corporate and public organizations. Bruce has designed and led programs including information security, CISO, leading threat management, security operations, assessment, vulnerability analysis, and information risk management. Bruce aligns with business management and considers how security initiatives can reduce risk and provide competitive advantages. Researches security vulnerability and compromise trends and develops strategies to combat emerging threats. Recognized as a change agent, has proven problem solving, project management, and interpersonal skills, affects cultural change through awareness program and security advocacy. His teaching and research interests are cybersecurity, research in cloud, artificial intelligence, and analytic computing security. So Bruce, please.
Hey, thank you, Rouzbeh. I am going to try to take control. And share my screen. So, thank you everyone for attending this evening. As Rouzbeh said, my name is Bruce Young, and I am the Cybersecurity Master's Program Lead and Lecturer at Harrisburg University. I've spent close to 30 years in the corporate world in technology and cybersecurity until a couple of years ago becoming full-time faculty at Harrisburg University. But today I still do consulting, helping organizations implement cybersecurity programs. And recently was interviewed for an online article to give my viewpoints and insights about where cybersecurity has been in the past, in the present, in the future. And so the article was posted by an organization called Run Panther and titled "The Future of Cyber Attacks." This is going to be the presentation that I talk about that was posted online. So if you have the opportunity, please go out and visit the Run Panther website and just go through the quick read. one of the questions, the first question that was asked, how cyber attacks evolved over the past 12 months. And at the time when I was interviewed, there was an interesting phenomenon that was occurring, and it was cyber attackers were notifying companies that they were threatening a denial of service attack if the organization didn't pay a ransom. This wasn't ransomware. It was strictly a threat of a denial of service attack. And the sources of the reports were from colleagues that are in the cybersecurity leadership within organizations, and then also seeing the reports, coming through from different cybersecurity speakers of some of their experiences. And so what was very concerning to me about this is that it was just a threat that of an attack, and organizations were having such little faith in their cybersecurity practices that they were actually paying the ransom. Now, fortunately, many of the colleagues that I know personally had the understanding of their cybersecurity controls and recognized that it simply was a threat that they felt that they could address, and instructed, higher level executives in the organizations, not to pay the ransom. And surprisingly, they never even suffered any kind of attack. So this was also exhibited, I'll say, to a certain degree with the Colonial Pipeline cyber attack. And most everyone is familiar with the Colonial Pipeline. Here in the United States, it caused a major outage that the pipeline shut down that supplies gasoline to many of the states on the East Coast, and actually caused certain states to have gas shortages. And the root was that Colonial Pipeline did suffer a ransomware breach. Bad actors were able to penetrate into their organization and then attack using ransomware. But a pipeline like Colonial Pipeline is a major infrastructure service, and they have information technology, but they also have operational technology. And the operational technology is what actually controls the industrial control systems and the supervisory control and data acquisition systems, or SCADA. The operational technology component of Colonial Pipeline was never impacted, but they made the decision to shut the pipeline down because they didn't have the faith in their cybersecurity controls once they were penetrated on the information technology component. So they shut the pipeline down, and they ended up paying $4.4 million in ransom. And some information that came out after the attack, the CIO was quoted, that they paid the ransom, what turned out to be within 8 hours of the recognition of the breach. And so they didn't even consider consulting cybersecurity experts, let alone their internal cybersecurity team. They made the decision to just pay the ransom. And to me, as a cybersecurity expert, that to me is incredibly concerning, that the leadership of organizations don't have faith in their cybersecurity programs, the capabilities of their people and are just simply paying the ransom. So what lessons can be learned from the biggest cyber attacks in recent history? So another attack that occurred was with what was known as the Capital One security breach. That happened back in July of 2019. Capital One is one of the largest financial organizations in the United States, and they suffered exfiltration of 100 million credit card applications that were stolen out of one of Capital One's systems and posted on GitHub. And it wasn't in the news and didn't get a lot of publicity. And one of the reasons it didn't get a lot of publicity is that the systems that were breached, Capital One was utilizing Amazon Web Services, their cloud environment, AWS. And the attacker was an AWS contracted employee called named Paige Thompson. And she was able to breach the cybersecurity controls and get access to a Capital One database and exfiltrate the data. And it's very interesting that, again, there wasn't a lot of publicity. You have Capital One, that is one of the top 5 largest financial institutions in the US, and you've got Amazon, which is the largest cloud provider. And simply a contracted employee. And you know, the lessons learned, this was one of the, at least that did briefly make the news, of a financial institution in the cloud, but also a cloud breach by a cloud provider employee. And it certainly brings to light that, you know, what security controls were in place to protect the data. It's extremely important today that you don't just protect the systems, but in a very diverse and distributed world of computing, when you start using cloud services, is that you got to make sure that you have the security controls in place to protect your data, because you don't know today who has access to it when you're using cloud services. And there's certainly certain audits, like a SOC 2 Type 2 report, that cloud service providers are required to have a third-party accredited auditing company come in and perform. And then they provide these SOC 2 Type 2 reports then out to their customers. But it can certainly show that there are gaps in making sure that you, as a consumer of cloud services, do your due diligence and understand the boundary of responsibility, that the cloud service provider is only responsible for the security up through the service offering, such as platform as a service, and that there's still controls that need to be put into place by the customer, and it's not just all relying on the cloud service provider. So what will cyber attacks look like in the future? So ransomware today is still extremely successful. There are many different delivery methods. One of the most common is through phishing attempts, only because phishing is a way to reach the broadest audience, and that includes users that may not be technically savvy. And so it still is a very extremely effective way to try to get a user to click on a link in a phishing attempt. that then can invoke ransomware. So attack methods are constantly changing. Ransomware is constantly changing. So in the near future, it's why change what is working? It's extremely sophisticated as far as encrypting someone's data, and you don't even have to remove it from the systems that it resides on. And you can just try to demand as much of a ransom payment as you think as critical as the data that may have been compromised. So expectations are that ransomware is going to continue to be an issue, but the delivery mechanisms and the attack methods will continue to change as technology changes. One of the things that was interesting about the Colonial Pipeline was the coordinated effort that was demonstrated in launching that attack. The attackers were able to penetrate into the system, but they actually were using what's known as ransomware as a service. And so a collaborated effort to penetrate into Colonial Pipeline's internal network and then use a ransomware as a service to actually then encrypt the data. And from a cybersecurity perspective, this type of organization of cyber attackers is also very concerning, because they're very well organized, and they're more organized than the organizations that are trying to defend against attacks. And there's a great sharing of information and services, through what's known as the dark web, to coordinate these types of attacks. And as the technology advances with artificial intelligence and blockchain, the expectations are that the attacks and breaches are going to become more sophisticated. So what is some of the advice to organizations that are looking to address this, these cyber attacks of the future? So simply investing in cybersecurity controls to protect against today's threats. Ransomware is preventable. It's there are, the technology exists today that will detect and prevent ransomware. And then certainly you want to have the security controls in place to be able to recover from an event. So invest in the technology instead of, paying the ransom. And so investing in the technology is what you need to do today, so that you're not having to pay the ransom, because it's going to be too late after you've been compromised, and you recognize, as the leadership of organizations don't have the security controls in place, that you're not going to be left without any possible choice but to pay the ransom. And then you're still going to want to, after you're been impacted, you're going to need to protect your reputation by implementing the necessary cybersecurity controls. So investing in the protections, and that includes people and processes, not just the technology. And going back to the Colonial Pipeline, where the impression is that they didn't have the faith in their cybersecurity controls that are used to protect their operational technology, to the point where they had to shut it down. So basically, they fell prey to the ransomware and a denial of service attack, because they didn't have the necessary controls or the faith in those controls, trusting that their staff and their processes would protect them from the bad actors being able to get to their operational technology. Very important, again, the Cybersecurity Master's Program at Harrisburg University recognizes that there is an incredible need for skilled cybersecurity professionals that will help organizations have the trust in their staff and implementation of their tools and processes to protect against ransomware. Another piece of advice, security awareness training for all staff at all levels, right? Including the executive levels. Security awareness training is still the way an organization can get the biggest bang for their buck, where they are training those users to be able to detect and identify phishing attempts, emails that are coming in that are malicious. And that's one of the reasons why that it's very important that the executives understand and take this type of training, because they're the ones that are being targeted because they have the most exposure. And when you do a targeted phishing attempt, it's called spear phishing. And it's very common for executives to be and fall prey to spear phishing attacks. And then, of course, implementing security controls that protect your environment. Things like multi-factor authentication, specifically when you're going through the digital transformation to the cloud. When you're now going to the cloud environment, I mentioned about the Colonial One attack. You have to make sure that security controls like encryption are in place. And that means encrypting your data and managing the keys to that encryption and not letting the service provider manage those keys. So ensuring that the data is protected and that only authorized individuals are able to access that data, and building out the protections. If there's anything that's internet facing, you want to be using a multi-factor authentication system and not just relying on user passwords, user IDs and passwords. So if you're going to the cloud, understand, I mentioned the boundary of responsibility. Know what the service provider is providing for security controls and what is the responsibility of the consumer, the customer that's utilizing those services, and understand the level of access control is going to fall on the responsibility of the consumer. So make sure that anything that's internet facing, specifically if you're, again, going through the digital transformation to the cloud, and you're taking systems that previously resided in an on-premise data center that may have not been exposed to the internet previously, and now when they go into the cloud, there is a level of exposure. So making sure that understanding what controls are in place of the current environment, and then understand what additional controls are required for a system and the data that now resides in the cloud. So thank you very much. Again, if you're interested in the master's program, the Cybersecurity Operations and Control Management program at Harrisburg University, please look us up on the web at www.harrisburgu.edu, and you can find the Cybersecurity Operations and Control Management under Programs, Cybersecurity-Operations-and-Control-Management. So thank you very much. Rosebud, is there any questions at this time, or are we going to wait till the very end?
Thank you. I don't see any question coming. If anybody has any questions, feel free to type it in the chat, or if you prefer to talk about your question, I can connect your microphone and you can ask your question. If there is no question, and there was a question for me, while I was reading your resume, I talked about risk, vulnerability, and threat. Can you give us a brief description about what they mean, how they are different from each other?
Absolutely. Vulnerability is very specific to an application that has a bug or a hole in code. Recently, there's been a vulnerability that's been identified as what's called log4j. And anyone in the technology community has probably been exposed to this. It's an extremely critical vulnerability that's been identified in most logging applications that uses this specific module. And that is the vulnerability, which is a bug or code error in the log4j module. The threat is when a vulnerability is identified and a exploit is developed that now becomes a threat. That the exploit of the vulnerability is going to allow unauthorized access or exposure of a system to bad actors. And so the difference between a vulnerability is that a vulnerability is a bug in code, and that code could be in an operating system or at any level of an application. And the threat exists once that an exploit is developed to take advantage of that vulnerability.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was a complete description. Thanks.
Sure.
So yeah, let's move to our next speaker then. We have Dr. Siamak Aram. He is an associate professor of computer science and data analytics at Harrisburg University of Science and Technology. Dr. Aram received his bachelor degree in software engineering. He has a master degree in information technology engineering, data security and network from Sharif University of Technology in 2010. In 2015, Dr. Aram received a PhD in computer and control engineering from Polytechnic University of Turin in Italy. In 2014, he commenced scientific work at Howard University in Washington, D.C. as a visiting scholar. He held several positions in this field for over the course of 3 years, including a collaborator researcher at the Eunice Kennedy Shriver National Institute of Child Health and Human Development at the National Institute of Health, NIH, a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Maryland School of Medicine's Clinical and Translational Research Informatics Center, and a postdoctoral research position at the Energy Efficient High Performance Computing Lab at the University of Maryland. Currently, Dr. Aram's interests are mainly focused on two fields: analyzing brain behavior using deep learning, machine learning techniques, and environmental monitoring, remote sensing using deep learning, machine learning applications. Dr. Aram, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Siamak Aram. I mainly teach courses related to AI, machine learning, deep learning, big data, and cloud computing courses. So today I'm gonna give you a short talk about AI and show you some real examples. AI is very important, growing field across different disciplines, fields, areas, from academia and science to industry. So let's talk a little bit about the concept itself, or what is AI. There are so many buzzwords you may have heard: data mining, big data, data security, learning from data, data science, data analytics, and so on. So many data-wise buzzwords, but the core is AI. That's where and how AI comes onto the scene. AI can be enhanced in a system if it learns over a time to respond to changes in its environment, whatever it's around that, whatever the application is. So an AI system learns underlying patterns and sometimes patterns from patterns that could be difficult for us to do that functionality, do that prediction, do that classification, do that whatever the functionality is. So AI is responsible to recognize those patterns, those hidden patterns, and reuse these models or reuse these models later in future for other similar applications. So we're going to talk about this concept today and some related ideas. AI can be also any technique. Enables computer to mimic us, our behaviors, our characteristic, our activities. For example, machine learning is an AI technique that considers learning from training data. We call it the data from past, historical data, and generating predictive models or some similar predictive models to get some output related what we are looking for. Another example is deep learning. You may have heard about deep learning before. It's a ground breaking technique. It's huge, it's a novelty, it's new, and it applies to the data to find some patterns of patterns. But the algorithms is mimic of our brain. It's actually inspired from our neurons in our brain. So in this slide, you can see the interconnection and relationship between AI, machine learning, and deep learning. But deep learning is subcategory of machine learning, and machine learning is subcategory of AI, but it doesn't mean that for example, deep learning is weaker than machine learning, or for example, AI is better than these two. It doesn't mean it's not like this. So, but deep learning is a breakthrough of machine learning and AI, but AI and machine learning is still there. They are still alive. They are still working, and depends on the application we are working, we may choose working with deep learning or machine learning or AI. So that's it. That's the difference. So you may ask, okay, what qualities do we need to work with AI and how we can get there? So that's a very valid question. And let's talk a little bit. So the qualities needed to work in AI area, a foundation in programming languages like, for example, Python or R, if you have heard anything about these two languages, and core knowledge is in statistics and an advanced understanding of algorithm and AI techniques like machine learning and deep learning, which I mentioned before. Other qualities including fundamentals in data engineering, work with systems and deploying the models, machine learning, deep learning models, to live production, for example, live video stream, something which is alive to work, and we get the data at the time that we see, at the time we can catch, we gather the data and then do some analysis or whatever we expect to do as a functionality. So from a managerial point of view, leadership communication, compelling storytelling, data analysis are crucial to working with cross-functional teams. So how to get there, how to learn, how to understand, it's an initial step into AI. There are some initial steps, but it's to work with historical data. The key concept is to work with data, the past data, the data we have from past. And then depends on the objectives, depends on the application, depends on the characteristic of the data, the volume of the data, understanding the data, key objectives, and the model logic will help us also to assess which model, which AI technique would work and we can apply to this specific application we are working. Is that a healthcare? Is that a whatever it is? We need to have some metadata, some more information to get there. So it's essential to recognize if the system is appropriate to enhance AI models and generate desired predictions or desired classification, desired clustering, whatever is desired to do as a functionality. The application of AI and its technique and the related algorithms vary across different disciplines, different fields, different areas, and it can be also interrelated as well. Different fields can collaborate with each other via AI to do some functionality. For example, computer science, statistics, data engineering, and machine learning, they all contribute to working with AI. So there are plenty of different areas and fields from healthcare, especially healthcare, manufacturing, food, real estate, finance, banking. They are all working right now with AI applications, and there are so many potentials to work and apply AI-based solutions. So from philosophy, from mathematics to, let's say, economics, neuroscience, psychology, even the cybersecurity that my colleague just talked about it, and linguistics, everything. The words printed here are concepts. The word I'm talking about are concepts. You must go through the experience. I love this quote from Carl Friedrich. It says that we need to go through through some real examples to learn this concept, the theories. So that's our plan to do that. We are going. That's why in a couple of upcoming slides, you will see some real examples, AI-based. I mean, there are short videos. I will not play whole short videos. I'm gonna play parts of them to give you some sense about the reality of AI and how they are working in the real world with real examples. So let's see what are these examples. Can you hear it?
Yes.
For example, here is an example about some drones. There are limitations in some areas. They cannot fly over the buildings, but with these drones, we can do that. They can detect the smokes through the smokes and the fires, find the object, the target, detect the target, and do whatever it is needed, or they send the data from live video stream through some thermal cameras and some specific sensors, send them to the centers for them to do whatever the action is required. So let's watch some other videos. That is also another interesting example. We can describe an image, text to image. It can find the image that we are talking about, or we can draw something, draw plus text to image. You can see we can draw. AI can help us if the deep learning based algorithm help us to find those figures, for example. This is amazing. excuse me, Dr. Sadigan, can you hear and see the videos? Dr. Sadigan. Bruce?
Yeah, I could hear him fine. It was excellent.
Yeah, because I think we have a comment on the chat that I cannot see them, or they're not running.
I don't know, it's working for me.
Someone else said that I can see. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I see. Yeah, I didn't check. Sorry, I missed the chat. Yes, some people missed the...
Okay, I'm going to continue. We can share the link later for those who couldn't, for example, they cannot watch the video. Okay, I'm going to continue. This is another great example of using AI with these gloves to make sense of the object that they are not existing. This might be familiar for everyone. The Amazon's robot army. That's an impressive technology. We use it every day because not especially with the Amazon, but through some other companies, we may order something, we may purchase something online. So there are an interesting algorithms, approaches using these robots and some other devices to put our order in some boxes, pack them, and send it to us. Here's another, it's a robotic kitchen. It's another example of using AI in the near future. It's now very expensive. There are some famous companies in the world, some big food companies, BBC Master Chef, and some other companies. But this is another great example. Transforming our brain waves, brain activity, reactions into the words using AI. You can send your feeling, whatever you want to write down, through your brain, transform it to a text. And also, you may have heard about the news that they did similar things and tweet something as a text into the word. This is very amazing. It's out there. It's commercial right now. Detecting the driver's attention, activity, emotion, behavior, even our speech, gesture, our feeling, everything. That's interesting. That's amazing. If you search the title of each of these slides, you will get to these videos and more information. They are famous applications. So I'm going to talk a little bit about 3 other applications. Cybersecurity, my colleague just talked about it, but right now, 5.6 billion malware attacks just in 2020 happened, and lots of money was spent in cybersecurity industry only in 2018. But there are 2 sides of this story. One side is our computers, our machines. The attackers, I mean, we are using AI applications to protect ourselves from the attacks. At the same time, the attackers, they use AI to attack us. So the AI in some areas and some fields, it has 2 sides. I mean, bad sides and good sides. So these are good challenging topics to talk. I mean, we can talk later, but this is another example of using AI in a bad side and a good side. So here's one of the projects that we are working right now at HU. So we detect the brain activity. This is the project that to detect the activity of the brain of the gamblers and non-gamblers who are addicted and not addicted to gambling. So we have a sensor, we put it here in prefrontal cortex. You play cards and we see how your brain is working while you are playing cards. And we have similar project right now at HU, research project. We gather the data of the activity of the brain of gamers. Most of us may play games, so we want to see what's going on here when you are playing game. This is a sensor only for the prefrontal cortex. There are some other sensors. We can get the whole skull brain, and then we do the analysis of this data using AI algorithms, deep learning algorithms, because they are huge data, large scale data set. It's not possible to deal with them with a non-AI based solutions. So right now, while we are talking, just in Indeed website, which is a job hunting website, you may find, I mean, there are 10 top jobs involving AI skills. You can see the first one is machine learning engineering, data scientist, computer vision engineering, algorithm, blah, blah, blah. You can see they just search the content of the job description and they got to this taxonomy and to this list of the top 10 jobs involving AI skills. So it's hot. Job these days is a hot topic, still is a hot topic, and there are so many job opportunities around the world for the AI practitioners, machine learning practitioners, and deep learning practitioners. So you may ask me, what's the future of AI? AI started in 1956 and is still new and is still challenging. We are still exploring the AI. AI is now and future at the same time. So there are some researchers we have at HU, Harrisburg University. The brain research that my colleague just mentioned, we're working on the brain. We are working on a digital environmental dashboard on a Susquehanna River in Pennsylvania, the state of Pennsylvania. We use some deep learning approaches to predict some environmental parameters. Opioid applications, animal detection. We are using a deep learning algorithm to detect deer on highways, on the street, to avoid the car accident with animals, and also social media dashboard using some machine learning and deep learning algorithm to detect some information and predict some more information from different platforms, social network platforms. I teach in ISEM program. We have 3 courses related to the topics I just discussed. Artificial intelligence principle and application. This is mainly for the master's students, and a big data and machine learning, And also we have an advanced machine learning and deep learning application course, which is for both PhD and master students. That's all about AI in a very short talk. So let me know if you have any question or comment. My email address is here. If you have any question, comment, just shoot me an email. Or if you want to discuss any of these research projects or any of these applications, just let me know.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry, I think that was probably an issue in the beginning because my voice also didn't work. So that was why some people couldn't see the videos, but we will share the link with you soon. So we have one question and who asks what kind of limitation exists on artificial intelligence considering the current technology? I think is or she is looking for your opinion.
What kind of limitations exist
Yep.
considering current? Oh, there are plenty of limitations on the different AI-based technologies and applications and solutions, from regulations to ethical aspects to technical aspects, because sometimes we may be able or we want to use AI. The data is huge. All the characteristics shows that we need to use and apply AI techniques, but there are some limitations. For example, in some countries, there are some ethical regulations, especially in European countries, on AI. To use them, you need to elaborate it why you want to use AI, and is there any consequences for that? Is there any, I mean, is that possible to stop it when it's learning from data and it's going to do something, especially in robotic applications? I hope I could answer your question.
Thank you. I don't see any other question coming. I'm still sorry about the time that was a mixed feeling. Some people could see the videos and some could not, and I don't know why it happened. We're going to share the videos soon. That was very interesting. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I need to thank both our presentations. That was a great, wonderful presentation, and I hope that the audience also enjoyed this great conversation night. And I need to thank all our audience tonight for taking time and attending this session. If you want to review this material, it's recorded. It will be posted on Harrisburg University YouTube channel, so you have access to this one, plus you're going to have access to all the past sessions. These sessions are going to be repeated every third Thursday of the month. We're going to have talks like this. The next one is going to be about the future of the healthcare and data, so don't miss that one too. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending the session, and hope to see you next month in our next presentation. Thank you all and have a good night.
Bye, everyone.